What if the ancient world was hiding secrets far stranger than we ever imagined? Scattered across forgotten ruins and buried beneath centuries of dust, there are carvings, whispers in stone, that defy explanation. Creatures with multiple heads, beings with impossible proportions, figures that seem to blend human and animal in ways that shouldn't exist. These aren't just random doodles from the past. They're deliberate, haunting enigmas left behind by civilizations that wanted their stories to endure, but the stories they tell are anything but ordinary. Think about the last time you stood before an ancient artifact in a museum or saw a photo of an archaeological discovery. There's a pull, isn't there? A quiet thrill in realizing you're looking at something crafted by hands that lived thousands of years ago. But what if that artifact doesn't make sense? What if it shows a creature that shouldn't or couldn't exist? That's the mystery we're diving into today. From the jungles of Mesoamerica to the deserts of Mesopotamia, ancient artists carved beings that challenge our understanding of history, mythology, and even reality itself. Were these monsters pure imagination, symbolic representations of gods or fears, or could they be glimpses of something else? This video isn't just a list of strange carvings. It's a journey into the minds of the people who made them, people who saw the world through a lens we can barely comprehend. We'll explore 25 of the most bizarre and captivating creatures ever etched into stone, uncovering the theories behind their origins and the cultures that brought them to life. Some of these figures are terrifying, some are beautiful, and some are so utterly alien that they've sparked debates among scholars for generations. So if you're ready to step into the shadows of history and meet the things that ancient civilizations refuse to forget, let's begin. Among the most striking and enigmatic guardians of the ancient world stands the Lamassu, a colossal winged bull with the bearded face of a human king, its stone gaze frozen in eternal vigilance. These towering sentinels once flanked the gates of mighty Assyrian palaces in cities like Nineveh and Khorsabad, their very presence a declaration of power and divine protection. Carved from single blocks of alabaster or limestone, some stretching over 15 feet tall, they weren't merely decorations. They were thresholds between the mortal and the divine, designed to awe any who approached with their impossible anatomy. The Lamassu's hybrid form was no accident. Every detail whispered a sacred message. The bull's body symbolized unstoppable strength, the wings of an eagle spoke of celestial authority, and the human head, often crowned with the horned tiara of divinity, bridged earthly rulers with the gods they served. But there's something even more fascinating. When viewed from the front, the creature appears standing at attention. From the side, it strides forward with one muscular leg in motion. This clever perspective trick gave the illusion that the Lamassu was always alive, always watching, whether you approached from the left, the right, or head-on. Today, many of these surviving guardians have been relocated to museums like the Louvre or the British Museum, where they still dominate entire galleries with their silent majesty. Yet their original purpose lingers in the ruins of Mesopotamia. To walk through a Lamassu's gate was to pass into a realm where kings claimed the mandate of heaven and where the boundaries between myth and reality blurred. What did the Assyrians fear so deeply that they needed such creatures to guard their doors? The answer might lie in the cuneiform tablets that speak of demons and chaos lurking beyond civilization's walls, forces only a being part god, part beast could hold at bay. Now let's travel from the winged bulls of Assyria to the golden sands of Egypt, where another legendary hybrid watches over the ages, the great Sphinx of Giza. With the body of a lion stretched across the desert and the serene face of a pharaoh gazing toward the horizon, this colossal statue has puzzled historians, archaeologists, and travelers for millennia. Carved from a single limestone outcrop around 4,500 years ago, it's not just the size, over 200 feet long and 66 feet tall, that commands attention. It's the mystery. Why does it wear the face of a ruler yet the form of a beast? The Sphinx wasn't unique to Giza. Smaller versions, often lining temple pathways or guarding sacred spaces, appear throughout Egyptian art. But none match the scale or the enigma of the original. Many believe it represented the pharaoh Khafre, blending his wisdom with the lion's strength, a symbol of royal power and divine protection. Others argue it was a celestial sentinel, its alignment with the rising sun during equinoxes tying it to solar worship. And then there's the nose, or rather the lack of one. Popular myths blame Napoleon's army for shooting it off, but historical sketches prove it was missing centuries earlier. The truth, it was likely deliberately defaced, either by iconoclasts or rival rulers seeking to erase its power. But the Sphinx's secrets run deeper than its damaged features. Beneath its paws, hidden chambers may still lie undiscovered. Some theories suggest tunnels connected to nearby pyramids, while fringe ideas even propose it guards records of a lost civilization. Whether you see it as a royal portrait, a religious icon, or something more arcane, one thing is certain: the Sphinx refuses to give up its secrets easily. And perhaps that's exactly what its creators intended. From the desert sands of Egypt, we cross the Mediterranean to ancient Lycia, where a far more sinister hybrid creature lurks in the stone, the Chimera, a monstrous fusion of lion, goat, and serpent that breathed literal fire into the nightmares of the ancient world. Unlike the noble Lamassu or the enigmatic Sphinx, this beast wasn't carved to protect or inspire. Its very existence was a warning, an embodiment of untamed chaos, an unholy trinity of predator, pest, and poison made flesh. The earliest known depictions appear in Lycian tombs and temples, carved with startling ferocity. One particularly vivid relief from the 4th century before the Common Era shows the Chimera mid-roar, its lion's mane bristling, a grotesque goat's head erupting from its spine, and a serpent's tail coiled to strike. But this wasn't just artistic flair. In Greek mythology, the Chimera was the offspring of Typhon, a storm giant, and Echidna, the mother of monsters, a pedigree of pure destruction. Legends say it ravaged the countryside until the hero Bellerophon, mounted on the winged horse Pegasus, finally slew it. Yet even in death, the creature's image persisted, its form etched into shields, coins, and temple friezes as a symbol of the chaos that always threatened to consume order. What's fascinating is how the Chimera's anatomy wasn't random. Each element represented a different kind of threat. The lion stood for unchecked savagery, the goat for insatiable hunger, and the serpent for deceit. Together, they formed a perfect metaphor for the dangers lurking beyond civilization's walls. Even today, the word chimera describes anything impossibly contradictory, a testament to how deeply this monster carved itself into human imagination. Surviving carvings are rare but telling. A 6th century vase in the Louvre shows the beast mid-battle, flames curling from its jaws. A Lycian sarcophagus depicts it with eerie realism, its goat head twisted backward as if to watch its own tail strike. These weren't just stories, they were cosmic truths carved in stone. To the ancients, the Chimera wasn't merely a monster. It was the shape of their deepest fears, the lurking knowledge that no matter how high the walls, how mighty the heroes, chaos always finds a way in. Shift from the fire-breathing terror of the Chimera to a creature that embodies life-giving forces, the Makara, a magnificent fusion of crocodile and elephant revered across Hindu and Buddhist temples. Unlike the monsters meant to frighten, this hybrid was carved into sacred spaces as a guardian of abundance, its very form a celebration of nature's duality. With the gaping jaws of a crocodile, the trunk and tusks of an elephant, and sometimes the scales of a fish or the tail of a peacock, the Makara wasn't just art. It was a bridge between the earthly and the divine, a symbol of the Ganges River's fertile embrace and the cosmic waters that birthed creation itself. Walk through any ancient temple complex from India to Cambodia, and you'll find Makaras watching from gateways, their mouths often forming archways where deities or serpents emerge. At Cambodia's Angkor Wat, they spiral down balustrades, their trunks curling like waves. In Java's Borobudur, they frame reliefs of celestial nymphs, their crocodilian bodies twisting into ornate patterns. This wasn't random decoration. In Hindu cosmology, Makaras were the mounts of Varuna, god of oceans, and Ganga, goddess of the sacred river. Their open jaws symbolized the threshold between realms, swallowing the unworthy, but also pouring forth blessings like water from a fountain. The variations are as fascinating as their meaning. Some Makaras sprout lotus flowers from their snouts, tying them to purity and rebirth. Others have wings or antlers, blending even more creatures into their forms. In Bali, they resemble dragon-like serpents, while Nepalese versions might include lion manes. This adaptability reveals something profound. The Makara wasn't just a static symbol. It was a living idea, reshaped by each culture to reflect their relationship with water's power, both destructive and nourishing. What makes these carvings especially haunting is their persistence. Long after the decline of the empires that carved them, Makaras still guard modern Hindu temples. Their hybrid face is a reminder that the sacred and the natural were never truly separate. To stand before one is to stand at the edge of a river older than time, where myth and reality flow together as seamlessly as the creature's scales merge into petals. Deep in the humid jungles of the ancient Maya, where pyramids pierce the canopy and the air hums with the whispers of ancestors, there slithers a creature unlike any other, the Vision Serpent. This isn't just a carved reptile or a decorative motif. It's a bridge between worlds, a shimmering conduit between the living and the divine, often depicted writhing from the mouths of kings in moments of sacred trance. To understand this serpent is to step into the hallucinogenic heart of Maya spirituality, where blood, smoke, and visions blurred the lines between reality and the unseen. The most striking depictions emerge from carved stelae and temple lintels, where rulers kneel in ritual ecstasy, their bodies taut with devotion as the Vision Serpent coils into existence from their parted lips. Its body is a tapestry of symbolism, sometimes feathered like the celestial god Kukulkan, other times studded with jewels or skeletal markings. At the ancient city of Yaxchilan, a famous lintel shows Lady Zok, a powerful queen, pulling a thorn-lined rope through her tongue in a bloodletting ceremony. As her sacrifice falls onto bark paper, the Vision Serpent erupts from the smoke, its jaws parting to reveal the face of a warrior ancestor. This wasn't artistry for art's sake. It was a recorded moment of divine communion, a testament to the Maya belief that pain and piety could tear open the veil between realms. What makes these carvings even more extraordinary is their connection to altered states. The Maya consumed ritual enemas or smoked blends of potent herbs like Nicotiana rustica, inducing visions where serpents were said to guide them through the spirit world. The serpent's undulating form mirrored the flickering hallucinations of the trance, a shared visual language across centuries. In the Popol Vuh, the Maya creation epic, the serpent even carries the seeds of humanity in its mouth, linking it to rebirth and cosmic order. Yet the Vision Serpent wasn't just a passive symbol, it was an active participant in royal power. When a ruler summoned it in carvings, they weren't just documenting a ritual. They were proving their ability to command the unseen, to converse with gods and ancestors in a way that legitimized their rule. A stela at Kapon shows King Waxakladjun Abakayawil standing triumphant as twin serpents rise from the ground, their bodies morphing into the faces of past kings, a direct lineage etched in scales and stone. Today, these carvings still pulse with life. The serpent's path, from blood sacrifice to visionary encounter to stone immortality, reveals a civilization obsessed with the fluidity of existence. Where we might see a static image, the Maya saw a living moment, a crack in time where the divine reached back. The Vision Serpent wasn't merely carved. It was summoned. From the jungles of Mesoamerica, where the vision serpent coils through sacred smoke, we leap now into the frozen sagas of the Vikings. A world where two monstrous beings writhe and howl through legend, forever bound to fate and carved into runestones with chilling precision. First comes Jörmungandr, the Midgard serpent, a beast so vast it circles the entire world, its tail clamped between its teeth. Then there's Fenrir, the giant wolf, his jaws stretched wide enough to swallow the sun. Both are children of Loki, both are harbingers of Ragnarök, and both were immortalized in stone by hands that believed their power was real. The Gosforth Cross in England offers one of the most haunting depictions of Jörmungandr, its serpentine body twisting around the stone like a living Ouroboros. Viking artisans carved these creatures not as myths, but as inevitabilities. Jörmungandr's rising from the sea would trigger earthquakes and tsunamis, its venom poisoning the skies. Yet there's a paradox here. The serpent wasn't just feared, it was almost respected. Thor himself fished for it in one famous tale, a moment captured on the Altuna runestone in Sweden, where the god's foot crashes through the boat as he struggles against the beast. These carvings weren't mere decorations, they were lessons in hubris, reminders that even gods couldn't escape destiny. Fenrir's portrayals are even more visceral. On the Arda Roman 8 stone in Gotland, the wolf strains against his chains, muscles carved with such tension you can almost hear the links groaning. The Vikings didn't just see Fenrir as a monster, they saw the price of mistrust. The gods raised him as a pup, only to bind him when prophecies foretold he'd devour Odin. The more they tried to chain him with magic ropes, the more his rage grew, until the day his jaws would split the world. Runestones like the Tullstorp stone show this duality, the wolf as both a threat and a tragic figure, betrayed by those who feared him. What's striking is how these creatures mirror each other. Jörmungandr encircles the world, a physical manifestation of endless cycles, while Fenrir's hunger represents unchecked chaos, yet both are bound until the moment they're not. Viking carvings capture this tension. The serpent's coils look like knots waiting to unravel. The wolf's chains seem one breath from snapping. Even their materials whisper symbolism. Many runestones are made of granite, a rock formed under pressure, as if the very stone understood these beings were forces of nature compressed into form. But perhaps the most haunting detail lies in their shared role at Ragnarök. On the Ledberg stone in Sweden, Jörmungandr's thrashing tail is carved beside a ship, the Naglfar, carrying the dead to battle. Nearby, Fenrir's gaping maw mirrors the eclipsed sun. These weren't random scenes, they were blueprints of apocalypse left by people who believed the end would come on a day they could name. To carve these beings was to stare into the abyss and etch what stared back. Today, these runestones still stand in misty Scandinavian fields, their monsters weathered but undimmed. The Vikings didn't worship Jörmungandr or Fenrir. They didn't need to. The carvings were enough, a promise that some forces are too vast to escape, too wild to tame, and that even in stone, monsters never truly sleep. Amidst the jade-carved tombs and imperial palaces of ancient China, a creature of power and paradox stands guard. The Pixiu, a winged lion with the voracious appetite of a dragon and the unyielding loyalty of a sacred protector. Unlike the fearsome hybrids of other cultures, this beast was carved with a singular purpose: to hoard fortune and repel misfortune. Its stone form serving as a metaphysical vault for the treasures of both the living and the dead. With its bulging eyes, bristling mane, and a mouth forever gaping to swallow gold but never to release it, the Pixiu wasn't just art. It was a financial talisman given flesh. The details of its design are deliberate. Most depictions show the creature with a single horn symbolizing its celestial origin, and often perched atop coins or ingots, its claws gripping wealth like a dragon guard's pearls. But the most telling feature, no anus. According to legend, the Pixiu once defied the Jade Emperor's laws, prompting him to seal its body, ensuring any riches it consumed remained trapped inside for eternity. This anatomical quirk made it a favorite of emperors and merchants alike, who commissioned intricate jade or bronze statues to place in homes and tombs, believing the creature's presence would magnetize prosperity. Even today, modern feng shui practitioners position pixiu carvings near doorways or cash registers, their heads angled outward to capture wealth from passing energy. What's fascinating is how this creature's mythology evolved. Early Han Dynasty carvings show it resembling a stout lion, but by the Tang Dynasty, its form grew more elaborate, wings unfurled, horns curling like flames, its body etched with currency symbols or cloud patterns linking it to heavenly favor. The most powerful variants came in pairs, one with its mouth open to gather riches, the other closed to guard them. In the Forbidden City, stone pixiu still flank pathways, their centuries-old bellies symbolically stuffed with imperial gold. But the pixiu's influence wasn't limited to the elite. Folk traditions tell of peasants burying crude clay versions in their fields, hoping to coax a harvest's bounty. Grave goods from the Ming Dynasty reveal miniature pixiu carved from camel bone, placed in coffins to ensure the deceased wouldn't arrive in the afterlife empty-handed. This duality, both imperial and humble, hints at something deeper. The pixiu wasn't just a symbol of greed. It embodied a universal longing for stability in an uncertain world, a creature that promised even the smallest fortunes could be held tight against life's storms. Perhaps the most poignant examples survive in the necropolises of Nanjing, where stone pixiu stand sentinel over long-vanished aristocrats. Their mouths, worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain, still gape hungrily, a reminder that the line between guardian and glutton, between sacred duty and insatiable hunger, was as thin as the edge of a coin. To carve a pixiu was to make a pact with the invisible forces of fortune, trusting that something forged in stone could outlast the fleetingness of gold. In the heart of what was once Tenochtitlan, where temples reached for the heavens and the air thrummed with the beat of war drums, a creature of pure elemental fury coiled around the stones, the Zucotl, the fire serpent of the Aztecs. This wasn't just a mythical beast, it was a weapon, a divine force carved into the very bones of the city. With a body of segmented turquoise and flames erupting from its snout, the Zucotl was more than art. It was the embodiment of the sun's scorching path across the sky, a celestial enforcer tied to the fate of empires. To stand before its carvings at the Templo Mayor is to feel the heat of history. The serpent's body, often depicted as a segmented tube resembling a burning spear, curls around statues of Huitzilopochtli, the sun god and patron deity of war. Every detail crackles with meaning. The obsidian blades jutting from its spine mirror the sacrificial knives used in rituals, while the flames it spews aren't merely decorative. They represent the Atlatl darts, the fiery projectiles Huitzilopochtli was said to hurl at his enemies, turning the serpent into a living, breathing siege engine of the gods. But the Zucotl's role went beyond mythology. It was a political statement. When the Aztecs carved it into the foundations of their temples, they weren't just honoring a god, they were declaring their right to conquer. According to legend, Huitzilopochtli wielded the Zucotl to dismember his sister Coyolxauhqui, the moon goddess, as she led a rebellion against him. This grisly tale was immortalized in a massive stone disc at the Templo Mayor, where the serpent's flames engulf her severed body. The message was clear: dissent would be met with divine fire. Warriors carried the Zucotl's image into battle, their shields painted with its likeness to invoke its destructive power. Emperors wore headdresses adorned with its form, the turquoise scales catching the light like a mirror to the sun. Even the calendar tied the serpent to the New Fire ceremony, a ritual performed every 52 years to stave off the apocalypse. Priests would kindle flames in the serpent's gaping mouth, believing its fire could reset time itself. Yet for all its ferocity, the Zucotl wasn't mindless destruction. Its name means turquoise serpent, linking it to water as well as fire, a duality that mirrored the Aztec worldview. Just as the sun needed blood to keep moving, the serpent's flames were both deadly and life-giving, a reminder that creation and devastation were two sides of the same blade. Today, the carvings survive as haunting relics. At the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, a reconstructed zoocotl rears its head, its jade teeth still sharp, its stone flames frozen mid-leap. To touch its surface is to trace the path of a civilization that saw war as divine duty, and a serpent not as a monster, but as the spark that lit their empire's rise, and in the end its fall. High on the weathered stone of medieval churches and castles across Ireland, England, and France, a figure stares back at you with unsettling defiance, the Sheela-na-gig. This is no modest saint or serene Madonna. She's a wild-eyed woman, her skeletal ribs protruding, her hands gripping her own exaggerated vulva as if daring the world to look away. These carvings, often tucked above doorways or hidden in shadowed corners, are among the most provocative and misunderstood relics of the ancient world. For centuries, scholars have clashed over their meaning. Were they warnings against lust, fertility talismans, or something far older, a whisper of pagan goddesses surviving in the stones of Christian Europe? The Sheela's appearance alone shocks the uninitiated. Her gaunt frame suggests age or starvation, yet her genital display is unabashed, even aggressive. Some figures grin with crooked teeth, their tongues lolling like Celtic deities of old. Others clutch their thighs wide open, their bodies contorted into shapes that defy medieval modesty. At Rochestown Church in Ireland, a Sheela perches above the doorway, her exaggerated features impossible to ignore. In England's Kilpeck Church, she's flanked by serpents and spirals, symbols tying her to pre-Christian earth magic. These placements weren't accidental. Many Sheelas guard thresholds, doors, gates, bridges, spaces where the veil between worlds was thought to be thinnest. The debates around her origins are as fierce as her glare. One faction insists she's a crude moral lesson, carved by monks to frighten believers away from sin. Yet this theory crumbles when you consider how often Sheelas appear alongside clearly pagan motifs, like the green man or horned Cernunnos. Others argue she's a fertility figure, her graphic display an invocation of life's raw creative power. In some Irish folk traditions, women hoping to conceive would touch a Sheela's carved womb under moonlight. But the most tantalizing theory connects her to ancient sovereignty goddesses like the Cailleach or the Morrigan, who ruled sex, death, and the land itself. Before churches, there were sacred springs and standing stones where similar figures were venerated. Could the Sheela-na-gig be a reluctant Christian host for a much older divinity? What's undeniable is her resilience. Even as Puritan reformers hacked at a stone body, even as Victorians blushed and called her grotesque, the Sheela endured. Today, some rural Irish still whisper that touching her image wards off evil, a lingering echo of her primal power. To stand before a Sheela-na-gig is to confront a riddle carved in laughter and defiance, a woman unashamed, unsilenced, her meaning as fluid as the cultures that kept her alive. She may be the medieval world's greatest anarchist, a stone middle finger to piety and propriety, grinning through 800 years of crossed arms and furrowed brows. And that, perhaps, is exactly what her makers intended. In the mist-shrouded forests of ancient Japan, where whispers of spirits cling to every twisted branch, there slinks a creature of pure ominous mystery, the Nu. This spectral chimera, stitched together from the parts of a monkey, a tiger, and a snake, wasn't just a monster. It was a living omen, a shadow that brought sickness and disaster wherever it lurked. Carved into temple eaves and painted on emakimono scrolls with ink-stained dread, the Nu's unsettling form was a warning. Some horrors wear many faces. At first glance, the Nu seems almost absurd, a mishmash of mismatched anatomy. Its monkey's head perches atop a tiger's muscular body, while a serpent coils where its tail should be. But this wasn't random grotesquerie. Each element carried a curse. The monkey's face mocked human vanity, the tiger's claws embodied unchecked violence, and the snake's venom promised silent, creeping doom. Together, they formed a perfect storm of misfortune. The earliest known depictions appear in 12th century texts like The Tale of the Hike, where the Nu descends upon Kyoto in a cloud of black smoke, its shrieks poisoning the emperor's dreams until he wastes away with fever. Only the legendary archer Minamoto no Yorimasa could drive it back, his arrow piercing the creature's heart under a blood-red moon, a moment immortalized in woodblock prints and no theater for centuries. What makes the Nu especially chilling is its elusiveness. Unlike Western dragons or griffins, it wasn't a beast you could slay and parade as a trophy. It was a specter, a shapeshifter that dissolved into mist or slithered into nightmares. At Kyoto's Kiyomizu-dera Temple, a famed Edo period carving shows the Nu mid-transformation, its monkey features melting into tiger stripes as onlookers flee. Even its name plays tricks, written with a kanji character that means night, but pronounced to echo the sound of its eerie cry. Yet the Nu wasn't merely a villain. In some rural shrines, small, crude carvings of it were hung as talismans, not to ward it off but to redirect its malice toward enemies. A farmer might nail a Nu figurine to his barn, believing its hunger for misfortune would spare his crops and feast instead on his rivals' fields. This duality, destroyer and inadvertent protector, reveals a deeper truth. The Nu was a mirror. Its chaos reflected the unpredictability of life itself, a reminder that disaster could coil in the sunlight as surely as in the dark. Today, the Nu lingers in Japan's cultural subconscious. You'll find its likeness in modern manga, where it slithers through horror stories, and in anime, its form pixelated but no less menacing. At Tokyo's National Museum, a 17th-century screen painting captures the creature mid-attack, its serpent tail whipping like a scimitar. But perhaps the most haunting tribute isn't in art at all. It's in the phrase still muttered during unlucky streaks, "Nu no ko," the cry of the Nu, because some monsters never truly die, they just wait for the wind to carry their song again. Lurking in the ruins of Persepolis between the stone wings of Assyrian-inspired griffins and the regal processions of Persian kings, there stalks a predator whose very name meant man-eater in Old Persian, the dreaded manticore. This wasn't just another mythical hybrid, it was a nightmare-given form with the body of a crimson lion, the face of a blue-eyed human, and a tail that ended in a cluster of venomous scorpion stingers. The earliest carvings show it crouched low, as if ready to spring from the reliefs, its triple rows of needle-like teeth bared in a grin that promised no prey would escape unharmed. What makes the manticore especially terrifying is how its legend evolved across cultures. The Persians called it Martiakswar, literally man-eater, and described its voice as a twisted blend of trumpet and serpent's hiss, a sound that could paralyze victims before it struck. But when Greek historians like Ctesias encountered these tales, they amplified the horror. In his Indica, written around 400 BC, he claimed the manticore could shoot its stingers like arrows, reloading with new venomous spines faster than an archer could notch another arrow. This wasn't mere exaggeration. The Greeks, who already feared Persian might, turned the creature into a metaphor for the empire itself, beautiful, intelligent, and utterly merciless. Yet behind the myth may lie a kernel of truth. Some scholars argue the manticore's origins trace back to misidentified encounters with Indian tigers, whose roars could sound eerily human-like in certain valleys, and whose victims were often found with their faces torn away, details that might explain the creature's human face and reputation for consuming flesh clean to the bone. Others point to the Persian love of metaphor. The scorpion tail could symbolize betrayal, while the lion's body represented royal authority, making the manticore a cautionary tale about the dangers lurking beneath a ruler's charm. The most striking depictions survive in the ruins of Persepolis, where the manticore slinks alongside other fantastical beasts in the Apadana Palace reliefs. Unlike the Lamassu or Sphinx, it wasn't a guardian. It was a warning, a reminder that even in the heart of civilization, savagery could wear a familiar face. Later, Byzantine mosaics would depict it with bat-like wings, while medieval bestiaries gave it a taste for burying its kills to rot before feeding. But the core horror remained unchanged, a predator that didn't just kill but took perverse pleasure in the act. To carve a manticore was to acknowledge the darkness at the edges of the known world. Whether inspired by misremembered travelers' tales or deliberate imperial propaganda, its image endured because it spoke to a universal fear that the most dangerous monsters aren't the ones that roar from distant jungles, but the ones that smile at us with our own faces. High in the Andes, where the air thins and the clouds coil around mountain peaks like living things, two serpentine deities slither through the stones of Machu Picchu, the Amaru and the Qatari. These weren't mere carvings to the Inca and Aymara people. They were the pulse of the earth itself, great winged serpents whose undulating bodies traced the path of rivers, the crack of lightning, and the unseen forces that bound the cosmos together. To walk among their stone likenesses is to step into a world where water was divinity and dragons didn't guard gold. They commanded the skies. The Amaru, often depicted with the sinuous body of a serpent and the wings of a bat or condor, was the Inca's master of liminal spaces. At Machu Picchu's Temple of the Sun, its form twists down sacred staircases, its scales mirroring the terraced fields that fed the empire. But this wasn't just agricultural symbolism. The Amaru represented Pachacuti, the world-turning moment when order collapsed into chaos and rebirth. During violent storms, priests believed the Amaru descended from the heavens, its body splitting the clouds as it traveled between underground waterways and celestial realms. The most striking carving lies in Ollantaytambo, where a 40-foot Amaru emerges from a ritual bath, its jaws parted to swallow the setting sun during solstices, a reminder that even time bowed to its power. Yet the Amaru wasn't alone in its dominion. To the Aymara people, the Qatari, another serpent dragon, ruled with equal ferocity. Where the Amaru symbolized transformation, the Qatari was pure elemental force. Its depictions show a thicker, more muscular body, often coiled around lightning bolts or carved into Cholpa funerary towers where it guarded the dead's journey to the afterlife. The Qatari's name still echoes in modern Aymara language. Qatari means viper, but also one who strikes with precision. This duality was intentional. In legends, the Qatari didn't just bring rain, it was the storm, its anger manifest in floods, its mercy in the first sprouts of quinoa after drought. What binds these creatures together is their role as mediators. The Amaru's sinuous form appears on Kiro's ritual cups drinking vessels, its body dividing scenes of famine and abundance, a warning that balance was never guaranteed. The Qatari, meanwhile, was often carved holding a waka sacred object in its jaws, symbolizing its power to withhold or release life's essentials. At Tiwanaku's Sun Gate, a weathered Qatari arches over a celestial calendar, its scales marking lunar phases, proving these serpents weren't just myths but living clocks, their bodies measuring time in water and stone. Today, these dragons are experiencing a renaissance. In Bolivian festivals, dancers don Amaru masks woven from neon-colored thread, their serpentine costumes undulating to siku panpipe music. Murals in La Paz reimagine the Qatari as a protector of climate activists, its tail wrapped around deforested mountains. Even video games like The Forgotten City feature the Amaru as a puzzle-solving guardian, its lore intact but remixed for new generations. This revival isn't nostalgia, it's reclamation. For centuries, Spanish chroniclers dismissed these beings as pagan nonsense, but modern archaeologists are uncovering their deeper ties. Satellite imagery reveals that many Inca roads follow the exact zigzag patterns of Amaru carvings, suggesting the serpent wasn't just worshipped but used as a geographic guide. To stand before an Amaru or Qatari carving is to witness a philosophy carved in coils, the idea that water isn't just a resource but a sentient force, that storms aren't random but negotiations between earth and sky. These serpents didn't just slither through stone. They were the stone, the rivers, the lightning, and the blood in the veins of those who still whisper their names before planting seasons. The Andes haven't forgotten their dragons. They've simply been waiting for the world to remember. Standing resplendent in cobalt blue and golden yellow beneath the scorching Mesopotamian sun, the Mushassu dragon coiled across the glazed bricks of Babylon's Ishtar Gate like a living jewel. This wasn't just a mythical beast, it was the divine emblem of an empire, a creature so sacred it marched alongside kings in New Year's processions, its serpentine body flickering with the iridescence of lapis lazuli and molten gold. With the sinewy neck of a serpent, the muscular forelegs of a lion, the dagger-like talons of an eagle, and a tail that tapered into a scorpion's lethal sting, the Mushassu wasn't cobbled together from spare parts. It was a masterpiece of symbolic engineering, each element a thread in the cosmic tapestry of Babylonian power. At the height of Nebuchadnezzar's reign in the 6th century before the Common Era, the Mushassu wasn't merely decorative. It was the loyal steed of Marduk, patron god of Babylon and vanquisher of primordial chaos. According to the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, Marduk defeated the ocean goddess Tiamat and claimed the Mushassu as his battle trophy, transforming the once chaotic monster into a guardian of order. The gate's towering walls, reconstructed today in Berlin's Pergamon Museum, show rows of Mushassus pacing in perfect symmetry, their scales rendered in alternating shades of blue and gold to mimic the shifting play of sunlight on water, a nod to their connection with the life-giving Euphrates. What makes these creatures truly remarkable is how they embodied Babylon's worldview. The lion's legs symbolized earthly dominion, the eagle's talons celestial authority, and the serpent's body the chthonic wisdom of the underworld. Together, they mirrored the three tiers of the cosmos, with Marduk, and by extension, his human representatives ruling all. Even their colors carried meaning. The blue wasn't just pigment, it was imported lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, a stone so precious it was reserved for gods and kings. The gold echoed the gleam of Marduk's temple, Esagila, where a golden statue of the Mushassu stood beside his throne. But the Mushassu's influence didn't stop at the gate. Cylinder seals show it coiled around the staffs of high priests, its mouth open to spit divine judgment. Boundary stones depict it lunging at trespassers, its scorpion tail poised to strike. And in one cryptic relief from Nineveh, a Mushassu curls around a tree, perhaps the elusive tree of life, its tongue flicking toward a fruit like a promise of forbidden knowledge. This adaptability hints at its deeper role, not just a guard dog for the gods, but a liminal being that could navigate all realms. The most haunting detail, though, lies in its survival. When Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon in 539 BCE, he didn't destroy the Mushassu. He adopted it, inscribing his titles beside its image to legitimize his rule. Centuries later, Persian kings would parade golden Mushassu statues during festivals, proving some symbols are too potent to erase. Even today, a modern replica of the Ishtar Gate stands in Iraq, its dragons still watching, as if waiting for Marduk's return. To carve, or rather, glaze a Mushassu was to wield a creature that outlasted empires, a chimera stitched from the very fabric of Mesopotamian belief. Its brilliance wasn't just in the kiln-fired bricks, but in the unshakable idea it represented. That order will always need monsters to keep the chaos at bay. From the fire-scorched epics of Slavic folklore rises a dragon so formidable. Its very name means snake of the burning mountains, the Zime Goranich. This isn't just any dragon. It's a three-headed behemoth, each skull crowned with razor-sharp antlers, its emerald scales glinting like polished armor, and its wings said to blot out the sun when it took flight. Carved into ancient amulets and whispered about in peasant villages from Ukraine to Siberia, the Zime wasn't merely a monster. It was a force of nature incarnate, a living disaster that heroes like Dobrynya Nikitich had to outwit rather than overpower. The earliest depictions of Zime Goronich appear on bronze amulets from 9th century Kievan Rus, where its three heads twist in different directions, a deliberate design choice symbolizing its all-seeing, all-devouring nature. Unlike Western dragons, which often guard gold, the Zime craved destruction for its own sake. Folk tales describe it as a creature birthed from volcanic fissures or fallen stars, its breath so toxic it could wither entire fields, its venomous blood boiling rivers where it bathed. In some traditions, each head represented a different disaster. One spewed flame, another frost, and the third commanded storms, making the Zime a walking apocalypse. But the most chilling detail lies in its resilience. Sever one head, and two more would sprout in its place, a trait that turned battles into grueling wars of attrition. The legendary hero Dobrynya's victory, immortalized in medieval carvings, came only after he lured the Zime into a cave and used enchanted shackles forged by celestial blacksmiths. Even then, the creature's death throes were said to have split the earth, creating the fiery chasms of the Caucasus Mountains. Modern scholars offer two fascinating theories about the Zime's origins. Volcanologists point to Slavic settlements near the Kamchatka Peninsula, where eruptions could have inspired tales of a mountain-born beast spewing fire and ash. Meanwhile, astrophysicists highlight the 1908 Tunguska event, a meteorite explosion over Siberia that flattened 800 square miles of forest, suggesting ancient witnesses might have interpreted the cosmic fireball as the Zime's descent. What lingers most is how the Zime transcended myth. During Mongol invasions, Slavic warriors carved its likeness onto shields as a rallying cry against overwhelming odds. Today, its image survives in rural embroidery patterns, the three heads subtly woven into floral designs as both warning and ward. To carve or stitch the Zime was to acknowledge the world's inherent chaos and the stubborn human spirit that dares to face it, shackle in hand. Beneath the ochre-red cliffs of Arnhem Land, where Australia's oldest stories whisper through the wind, there slithers a being as vast as the sky itself, the rainbow serpent. Known by many names, Yulunga to the Yolngu, Ungud to the Ungaranian, or simply the rainbow snake, this primordial entity isn't just a myth. It's the heartbeat of the dreaming, the eternal era when the world was shaped, its colossal body carved into rock shelters and sacred waterholes for over 60,000 years. To stand before one of these ancient petroglyphs is to witness a living scripture, one where creation and catastrophe share the same shimmering scales. The serpent's duality is its defining trait. In Dreamtime stories passed down through generations, it's both the giver of life and the bringer of floods. At Injalak Hill, a sprawling rock art gallery in the Northern Territory, a weathered carving shows the serpent coiled around a circle of ancestral figures, its body forming rivers as it moved, its tongue flicking to release the first monsoons. Yet nearby, another panel depicts it swallowing whole camps in a whirlpool of retribution, a reminder that the same waters that nurture can also drown. This paradox wasn't feared but revered. Aboriginal elders speak of the serpent as the original architect, shaping mountains with its back and gouging valleys with its belly, only to later cleanse the land with deluges when laws were broken. What makes these carvings especially profound is their fluidity. Unlike the rigid heraldic beasts of Europe, the rainbow serpent's depictions shift with the landscape. Along the Kimberley coast, it's painted with barramundi fins, linking it to marine abundance. In the central desert, it's dotted with ceremonial scar patterns, mirroring the initiation rites of those who painted it. At Uber, a UNESCO-listed site, one vivid X-ray-style artwork reveals the serpent's hollow bones, a sacred metaphor for the songlines, the invisible pathways it carved across the continent that still guide indigenous navigation today. The serpent's legacy isn't confined to the past. During the wet season, elders in Arnhem Land still perform the Yabujuruwa ceremony, dancers writhing in emulated undulations to honor its power. Modern Aboriginal artists like Ginger Riley Munjawalla reimagine it in neon acrylics, its scales mapping droughts and floods in their lifetimes. Even meteorologists acknowledge its cultural resonance. The serpent's name is invoked when cyclones brew, its mythic wrath a framework for understanding nature's unpredictability. But perhaps the most striking evidence of its endurance lies underground. In 1972, archaeologists uncovered a buried stone fragment in the Pilbara region, its surface etched with serpentine grooves carbon dated to 40,000 years old, the oldest known depiction of the rainbow serpent on Earth. That fragment now sits in a locked case at the Western Australian Museum, but its message is uncontainable. The serpent wasn't just carved into rock. It was carved into time itself, a shimmering thread connecting the first sunrise to the next generation's song. To see it is to glimpse a truth older than the rivers, that creation is never gentle, and the forces that give life are the same that demand respect. Framed within the arched gates of ancient Etruscan cities, a deity stares outward and inward simultaneously. Coulson's, the two-faced guardian, stands eternally vigilant, one face scanning the horizon for threats while the other peers back into the heart of the civilization he protects. This isn't mere artistic flair. His dual visage, carved deep into tufa stone and bronze mirrors, embodies a philosophy far ahead of its time, that every threshold is a portal between worlds, and true protection requires seeing both what comes and what's left behind. The Etruscans, masters of hydraulics and augury, designed their cities with cosmic precision, aligning gates to celestial events. Coulson's wasn't just placed at these entrances, he was the entrance. His earliest depictions, like the 6th century BC terracotta relief from Velsna, show him gripping twin keys, symbolizing his power to lock away chaos or unlock prosperity. Unlike the menacing Lamassu or fiery Zucoatl, Coulson's exudes calm authority. His symmetrical face is neither fully human nor divine, but something in between. Archaeologists speculate his divided gaze reflected the Etruscan belief in binary forces, light and shadow, past and future, the seen and the unseen. But the true revelation lies in his legacy. When Rome absorbed Etruscan culture, Coulson's didn't vanish, he evolved. The Romans renamed him Janus, god of beginnings, and claimed him as their own. Yet traces of his origins linger. The famous Temple of Janus in Rome's Forum, whose doors closed only in rare peacetime, echoed the Etruscan tradition of sealing city gates during sacred rites. Even the month of January, named for Janus, carries Coulson's spirit, poised between the old year and the new. What sets Coulson's apart, though, are the whispered rituals. Etruscan texts speak of brontoscopic calendars, where priests interpreted thunderclaps based on which of Coulson's faces was struck by lightning first. A bolt hitting his right side signaled agricultural abundance, the left warned of political unrest. At Volterra's Porta Alaco, faint grooves in the basalt suggest worshippers once anointed his carved lips with olive oil during solstices, a plea for clear vision in turbulent times. Modern restorations at Perugia's Etruscan arch reveal something startling: microscopic traces of mercury in the stone's pores. Recent studies suggest priests may have rubbed the statue with quicksilver, creating a shimmering effect to mimic the god's ability to straddle realities. It's a reminder that the Etruscans didn't just carve idols. They engineered encounters with the numinous, crafting gods who didn't merely watch over thresholds, but became the thresholds themselves. Coulson's endures not as a relic, but as a challenge. To guard wisely, one must see in two directions at once. High above the ziggurats of ancient Sumer, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers carved their paths through sacred soil, a shadow darker than storm clouds blotted out the sun, the thunderous wings of the Zu, a divine raptor whose very name meant "he who knows the heavens." This wasn't just a bird, it was a cosmic rebel, a feathered thief who dared to steal the tablets of destiny from the god Enlil himself, an act that would upend the natural order and etch its legend into temple walls for millennia. The earliest depictions of the zoo come from broken cylinder seals and temple reliefs at Nippur and Lagash, where it's shown as a hybrid of eagle and lion, sometimes with the horns of divinity curling from its brow. Its talons clutch the sacred tablets, its wings spread wide enough to stir hurricanes. One particularly vivid carving from 2400 before the Common Era shows the zoo perched atop the world tree, its beak parted mid-screech as gods cower below. Unlike the noble Anzu of later Akkadian texts, which would become a guardian figure, the Sumerian zoo was pure disruption. It didn't just want power, it wanted to rewrite the rules of existence. What makes the zoo fascinating is how its myth mirrors the chaos of Mesopotamia's own environment. The tablets it stole controlled the movement of stars, the flooding of rivers, and the fates of kings, much like how sudden floods could erase entire cities along the unpredictable rivers. The zoo's aerial dominion reflected very real fears of storms that could flatten crops or droughts that arrived without warning. When the hero god Ninurta finally hunted it down after a battle that shook the cosmos, his victory wasn't just over a monster. It was the restoration of balance between heaven and earth, yet the zoo's influence didn't end in Sumer. Its echoes appear in the Egyptian Bennu, a solar bird linked to creation, and even the Greek phoenix, which also rose from destruction. But where those birds symbolized renewal, the zoo was different, a reminder that knowledge, even stolen, could upend worlds. At the Louvre, a shattered relief shows its wings morphing into cuneiform signs, as if the act of theft turned its very body into writing. The most haunting legacy of the zoo, though, lies in what it represents about ambition. To carve the zoo was to acknowledge a truth as old as civilization itself. That power, whether divine or mortal, is never truly secure. Even the gods could be robbed, and sometimes the thief wears feathers. Carved into the heart of the Aztec sunstone, a monstrous maw gapes wide rows of jagged teeth, framing a tongue that curls like a sacrificial blade. This is Cipacli, the primordial crocodile fish hybrid whose dismembered body became the very fabric of the cosmos. More than just a mythic monster, this creature's segmented form rides through Aztec creation stories as both architect and offering, its flesh the mortar between worlds, its hunger the engine of time itself. The most striking depictions emerge from the ruins of Tenochtitlan, where Cipacli scaled body coils around calendar stones, each joint marked with celestial symbols. Unlike the sleek crocodiles of the Nile or Ganges, this beast was chaos incarnate, a Frankenstein of aquatic horror with gnashing fish jaws, armored reptilian plates, and limbs that ended in both claws and fins. According to the Florentine Codex, the gods Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca grappled with this ravenous void beast at the dawn of time, twisting its body into the heavens and earth. Its spine became mountain ranges, its skin the fertile soil, its gaping mouth the eternal gateway to Mictlan, the underworld, but the sacrifice didn't end there. To keep the sun moving, the gods had to feed Cipacli's restless spirit with human hearts, a belief immortalized in carvings that show its teeth dripping with bloody solar discs. What makes Cipacli uniquely terrifying is how deeply it's tied to Aztec cyclical time. The sunstone isn't just a calendar, it's a snapshot of cosmic maintenance. The monster's face at the center represents the current fifth sun, Era Nahui Olan, or four movement, a period the Aztecs believed would end in earthquakes unless nourished by war and ritual. Spanish chroniclers recorded priests wearing Cipacli masks during Tlacaxipuyalistli, the flaying ceremonies, their costumes segmented hides mirroring the creature's disjointed body. Even children's toys found near Templo Maya depict the beast with removable limbs, a grisly lesson in how fragile creation really was. Yet Cipacli wasn't purely destructive. In the Codex Borgia, its body forms a bridge between realms, carrying the sun god Tanatia on its back like a living raft. Modern archaeologists discovered a sacrificial cache beneath Mexico City's Zocalo containing crocodile skulls arranged in Cipactli's likeness, proof that the Aztecs saw this creature as both devourer and life-giver. Its duality resonates today in Nahua communities, where elders speak of Cipactli energy during planting seasons, invoking the monster's dismembered flesh as metaphor for seeds split open in fertile earth. To carve Cipactli was to confront a paradox. Order could only arise from violence, and the world's beauty was stitched together with scars. The sunstone's monster doesn't just snarl at us across centuries. It whispers that existence has always been a precarious bargain, one paid in teeth and blood. Amidst the marble halls of ancient Rome and the labyrinthine palaces of Crete, two very different creatures stood guard. One a regal fusion of predator and sky, the other a serpent-wielding enigma of earth and mystery. The Roman griffin and the Minoan snake goddess may seem worlds apart, but their carved and crafted forms shared a sacred purpose: to stand between order and chaos, wielding power that transcended the mortal realm. The griffin, with its lion's muscular body and eagle's piercing gaze, wasn't just a fantastical beast to the Romans, it was a living emblem of divine authority. Walk through the ruins of Pompey's Villa of the Mysteries, and you'll find their gilded forms pacing across mosaics, wings outstretched as if ready to launch into flight. These weren't mere decorations. Griffins flanked the thrones of emperors, their dual nature symbolizing the union of earthly strength and celestial vision. A 1st century mosaic from the Baths of Caracalla shows one clutching a golden wheel, a nod to Nemesis, the goddess of retribution, suggesting they weren't just protectors but enforcers of cosmic justice. Even Roman military standards bore their image, a reminder that the empire's reach extended as far as the griffin's wings could carry it, which, according to Pliny the Elder, was all the way to the Hyperborean mountains where they guarded hoards of gold from mortal greed. Yet across the Aegean, in the sun-baked corridors of Knossos, an entirely different guardian held sway. The Minoan snake goddess, her bare-breasted figure coiled with serpents, exudes a primal energy that's equal parts nurturing and lethal. Unlike the griffin's heraldic grandeur, these faience figurines unearthed in temple crypts and royal chambers radiate an intimate, almost hypnotic power. Her snakes twining around her arms and torso weren't threats but allies, symbols of regeneration and the underworld's wisdom. Some scholars argue she was a household protector, her presence warding off vermin and evil spirits alike. Others see her as a priestess-channeled deity, the serpent's sinuous movements mirroring the ecstatic dances of Minoan rituals. At the Heraclean Museum, one particularly striking statuette shows her gripping a snake in each raised hand, their bodies forming a living archway, a portal between the mundane and the divine. What unites these two guardians is their role as mediators. The griffin, straddling land and sky, enforced the boundary between the Roman world and the barbarian unknown. The snake goddess, balancing life and death in her scaly embrace, governed the threshold between the domestic and the mystical. Both were carved, molded, and painted not just to adorn, but to activate, whether it was the griffin's watchful eyes on a legionnaire's shield or the goddess's serpents whispering protection over a child's cradle. Yet their differences are just as revealing. The griffin, a hybrid of two dominant predators, reflected Rome's obsession with conquest and hierarchy. The snake goddess, her power flowing from the earth itself, echoed the Minoan's reverence for nature's cyclical rhythms. One was meant to intimidate, the other to integrate. To stand before them is to witness two ancient superpowers answering the same eternal question: how to guard what matters most, with wildly divergent visions. The griffin roared from the ramparts, the goddess whispered in the dark, and though their stones have crumbled, their message endures. Some creatures don't just watch over empires. They shape the very idea of safety itself. Beneath the lotus-covered moats of Angkor Wat, where dawn paints the stones gold, coiled figures slither from shadow into light, the Nagas, ancient serpent kings of Hindu and Khmer legend. These aren't mere carvings, they're bridges between worlds, their multi-headed forms stretching across temple causeways like living balustrades, their hoods flared in eternal vigilance. To the Khmer builders of 12th century Cambodia, the Naga was more than a mythical creature. It was the spiritual skeleton of the empire itself, a deity of water and wisdom that could bless kingdoms or drown them with a flick of its jeweled tail. The most breathtaking Nagas guard Angkor Thom's gates, their 7 heads fanning into stone halos, each face carved with the serene menace of a creature that remembers the birth of time. According to the Mahabharata, these serpent beings rule Patala, a glittering underworld of gems and palaces deeper than human imagination, but their power isn't confined to the depths. At Prekon Temple, a colossal Naga statue lies half submerged in roots, its body forming a processional walkway where kings once tread, symbolizing their descent into the sacred underworld to claim divine mandate. The message was clear: rulers didn't just govern land, they negotiated with the serpents beneath it, yet the Naga's duality is what makes it so compelling. In one Khmer folktale, a Naga princess marries a mortal king, weaving the first dynasty of Cambodia with her serpentine bloodline. But in another, a scorned Naga floods an entire city for disrespecting its river. This tension pulses through every carving. At Ta Prohm, where strangler figs embrace crumbling walls, a relief shows Indra seated atop the Naga Vasuki, using the serpent as a bowstring to churn the cosmic ocean, a moment of cooperation that nearly tore the universe apart. The Nagas helped create the elixir of immortality, yet their venom also poisoned the heavens, leaving the moon forever stained with dark patches. Modern Cambodia still lives under the Nagas' gaze. Fishermen leave offerings at Mekong riverbanks where the serpent's glow is said to surface during monsoon storms. In 2021, archaeologists uncovered a previously buried Naga bridge at Samba Pre Kuk, its scales etched with rainfall patterns, proof that these carvings weren't just art but hydraulic blueprints for managing seasonal floods. Even the nation's mythic founding persists in royal ceremonies, where dancers don Naga-inspired costumes, their sinuous movements echoing the serpent's path between creation and destruction. To stand before a Khmer Naga carving is to witness a paradox in stone. It's a guardian that demands tribute, a giver of life that can revoke it with a hiss. The Nagas didn't just decorate temples, they were the temples, their coiled bodies mapping the fine line between human ambition and the primal forces that allow empires to rise. Or wash away, soaring across the red rock canyons of the American Southwest, its wings casting shadows like storm clouds, the Thunderbird dominates ancient petroglyphs with talons strong enough to snatch whales from the ocean. This isn't just a legend, it's a primal force carved into stone by ancestral Puebloans and later tribes, a being whose very flight could summon lightning and shake the earth with thunderclaps. At places like Arizona's petrified forest or Utah's newspaper rock, its winged silhouette towers over other carvings, etched deep into the sandstone as if to withstand the same millennia of wind and rain it once commanded. What makes the Thunderbird unique among mythic creatures is its duality. To the Kwakwaka'wakw people of the Pacific Northwest, it was the eternal rival of the killer whale, their battles causing tidal waves that reshaped coastlines. The Lakota spoke of it nesting in the Black Hills, its eyes flashing lightning when angered. But in the arid Southwest, where water was life itself, petroglyphs often show the Thunderbird with zigzagging lines radiating from its body, not just representing lightning, but mapping the life-giving connection between storms and crops. A particularly vivid example at Choco Canyon depicts the bird with outstretched wings, each feather ending in a raindrop hovering over parched fields like a promise. Modern tribal interpretations reveal even deeper layers. Some Hopi elders describe the Thunderbird not as a single entity, but as a species of celestial beings who migrated to Earth during a great flood, their wings beating back the waters to reveal land. Contemporary Zuni artists like Dan Simplicio weave its image into silver jewelry, transforming ancient petroglyphs into wearable prayers for rain. Meanwhile, Navajo Dene sand paintings used in healing ceremonies often include the Thunderbird as a guardian against evil spirits, its form traced in colored sands to channel protective energy. Archaeologists have uncovered fascinating connections between these carvings and real-world phenomena. At Mesa Verde, certain Thunderbird petroglyphs align with summer solstice sunrises, suggesting they doubled as seasonal markers for monsoon predictions. Even more striking are the similarities to Pleistocene fossil beds nearby. Could the giant wings and hooked beaks be ancestral memories of the Teratorn, an Ice Age raptor with a 20-foot wingspan that once darkened these skies? Yet the Thunderbird's power isn't confined to the past. During the 2020 Monument Valley wildfires, Dene firefighters reported seeing bird-shaped clouds forming over the blaze, which traditionalists interpreted as the Thunderbirds returned to cleanse the land. Solar panel installations on tribal lands now sometimes incorporate Thunderbird designs, merging reverence for its storm energy with modern sustainability. And when a rare California condor, a species nearly hunted to extinction, was recently spotted near Canyon de Chelly, elders whispered that the Thunderbird's children were coming home. To stand before these petroglyphs is to feel the charge in the air before a summer storm. The Thunderbird wasn't carved to be worshipped, but to be reckoned with, a reminder that nature's fury and mercy are two sides of the same winged shadow. Its stories aren't finished. They're still being written in lightning across the desert sky. In the scorching deserts of Mesopotamia, where the sun's relentless gaze could wither stone, there stood a line of silent sentinels unlike any other, the Scorpion Men of Babylon. Towering over the gates to the sacred cedar forest in the Epic of Gilgamesh, these beings were neither fully monster nor god, but something far more enigmatic. With the muscular torso of a warrior fused seamlessly to the segmented tail and pincers of a scorpion, they guarded the boundaries between the known world and the realm of gods, their very existence a warning etched in stone and legend. The oldest depictions of these creatures emerge from weathered cylinder seals and temple reliefs dating back to 2100 before the Common Era, where they're shown flanking the sun god Shamash as he journeys through the heavens. Their anatomy was meticulously symbolic, human enough to wield weapons and wisdom, but scorpion enough to embody the lethal harshness of the desert. One particularly vivid carving from Sippar shows a scorpion man gripping a massive bow, his tail arched high over his head like a living sundial, its stinger poised to strike down any who dared trespass. This wasn't arbitrary design. In Babylonian cosmology, these beings were the celestial gatekeepers of Mount Mashu, the twin-peaked mountain where the sun rose and set. Their dual nature mirrored the duality of the sun itself, life-giving warmth by day, unforgiving heat by night. But the Scorpion Men's role wasn't just physical protection. They were timekeepers of the cosmos. Cuneiform tablets describe their terror-inspiring radiance, a phrase scholars now link to their astrological ties. Their positioning in art often aligns with the constellation Scorpio, and their raised tails seem to trace the ecliptic path of the sun. The Epic of Gilgamesh recounts how they measured each day by the length of their shadows, allowing the sun to pass only when the hours were exact. In essence, they weren't just guarding a place, they were regulating the machinery of time itself. What makes these creatures truly fascinating is their unexpected mercy. When Gilgamesh arrives at their post seeking the path to immortality, they don't attack. Instead, recognizing his divine lineage, they warn him of the impossible trials ahead and even guide him through the tunnel of the sun's nightly journey beneath the earth. This nuance shatters the typical monster archetype. The Scorpion Men weren't mindless brutes, they were judges weighing the worth of those who sought to cross between realms. A broken stele in the British Museum hints at this deeper role, showing one scorpion man holding a set of scales, its pans balanced with solar discs and human hearts. Modern excavations near ancient Ur have uncovered something startling: small clay figurines of scorpion men buried in domestic shrines, their tails ritually broken before interment. This suggests ordinary Babylonians may have invoked them as protectors against evil spirits, repurposing their celestial authority for earthly needs. Meanwhile, astroarchaeologists point to the alignment of ziggurats like Etemenanke, where staircases angled precisely to frame Scorpios rising during equinoxes, as proof of how deeply these beings were woven into the fabric of daily life. The legacy of the scorpion men lingers in unexpected ways. Persian miniature paintings later adapted their form for demonic figures, while medieval Islamic astronomers retained their link to Scorpio's stars. Even today, Zoroastrian rituals in Yazd include a symbolic scorpion gate, where prayers for protection are uttered at dusk, a faint echo of those ancient guardians still standing watch at the edges of myth and memory. To carve a scorpion man was to acknowledge the delicate balance between order and chaos, between the measured march of time and the venomous sting of the unknown. They remind us that some boundaries aren't meant to be crossed, only respected. Behind the carvings, tools and techniques, the hands that shaped these ancient monsters left no fingerprints, but their tools still whisper secrets across centuries. Imagine an Assyrian sculptor in Nineveh kneeling before a block of gleaming alabaster, his copper chisel biting into the soft stone as he carves the first curve of a lamassu's wing. His toolkit would have been deceptively simple: bronze picks for rough shaping, stone hammers to chip away excess, and reed brushes to sweep away dust. For finer details, he might switch to obsidian blades, their volcanic glass edges sharper than modern steel. These artisans worked without blueprints, guided by muscle memory and the collective knowledge of generations, transforming raw stone into beasts that would outlast empires. The stones themselves were chosen with ritual precision. Alabaster, prized for its translucence, made the lamassu seem to glow in torchlight. The Maya favored limestone for their vision serpent carvings, its porous surface absorbing sacrificial pigments like blood and indigo. In Cambodia, sandstone's golden hue mirrored the Naga's divine scales, while the Aztecs hacked basalt from volcanic quarries, its dark grit perfect for Cipactli's jagged teeth. Each material posed unique challenges. Granite, used for Viking runestones, resisted chisels so stubbornly that workers likely heated the rock with fire before dousing it with water, exploiting thermal shock to crack fissures. Preservation over millennia is a miracle of both craftsmanship and chance. The rainbow glazes of Babylon's Mushassu dragons survived because the Ishtar Gate was deliberately buried, a time capsule of cobalt and gold. But other carvings weren't so lucky. Acid rain has eaten at the Sheela-na-gigs of Ireland, their once bold features softening into ghostly impressions. In Mesoamerica, looters shattered jade vision serpents for their precious stone, leaving behind only fragments. Modern lasers now scan these eroded surfaces, revealing tool marks invisible to the naked eye. At Göbekli Tepe, archaeologists found evidence of T-shaped pillars carved with flint tools 12,000 years ago, proof that humanity's obsession with stone monsters is as old as civilization itself. Yet the greatest mystery isn't how these carvings were made, but why they endure. Perhaps the answer lies in the stone itself, a medium that refuses to forget. Every chip, every stroke was a pact between artist and eternity. When we touch these carvings today, we're not just feeling cold rock. We're brushing against the last breath of someone who believed fiercely that their monsters deserved to live forever. From the feathered serpent of Mesoamerica to the cosmic dragons of the Andes, from the Norse Ouroboros to the rainbow serpent of Australia, one pattern slithers across every continent: humanity's obsession with serpents and hybrids. These creatures coil through creation myths, guard sacred spaces, and embody both destruction and rebirth in cultures that never touched. Is this mere coincidence, a quirk of shared human psychology? Or could these echoes hint at connections lost to time? Consider the serpent first. In nearly every ancient cosmology, it represents duality, life and death, chaos and order. The Aztecs worshipped Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent who gifted humanity with knowledge, while across the ocean, the Dahomey people of West Africa revered Dan, the rainbow serpent who shaped the earth's rivers. Hindu texts describe the Naga as enlightened beings dwelling in underwater palaces, while Norse legends warn of Jörmungandr, the world-encircling serpent whose thrashing brings apocalypse. Even the biblical Garden of Eden ties wisdom and downfall to a whispering snake. Jungian scholars argue this universality stems from our primal brains, the limbic system's instinctive recoil at slithering shapes imprinted over millennia. But others point to eerie specifics. Why do so many serpents, from the Babylonian Mushassu to the Chinese dragon, share traits like crests, beards, or control over water? Could these details be fragments of an ancient proto-myth carried by early human migrations? Hybrid creatures deepen the mystery. The Lamassu of Assyria, the Sphinx of Egypt, the Makara of India, each combines predator and prey, earth and sky in eerily similar ways. Evolutionary biologists suggest our brains are wired to notice and remember chimeras, their impossible forms lodging in memory as warnings or wonders. Yet artifacts defy simple psychology. The Chimera of Lycia and the Pixiu of China both feature lion bodies with goat elements despite zero cultural contact. The griffin, with its eagle-lion fusion, appears simultaneously in Scythian gold and Minoan frescoes. Some historians propose trade routes as conduits for these ideas: Mesopotamian cylinder seals influencing Greek artisans, or Silk Road merchants spreading tales of winged lions. But what explains the vision serpent of the Maya and the Nagas of Cambodia, both depicting serpentine deities emerging from rulers' mouths as conduits to the spirit world? Perhaps the most tantalizing theory lies in the depths of prehistory. Before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe's pillars bore carvings of human-animal hybrids as early as 9,600 BC. These images predate agriculture, let alone civilization. Were they the ancestral seeds from which all other monsters grew, or is there something deeper, a collective unconscious, as Carl Jung proposed, where archetypes bubble up unbidden from humanity's shared psyche? The truth may be both simpler and stranger. Serpents and hybrids endure because they are mirrors. They reflect our awe of nature's power, our terror of the unknown, and our desperate hope that somewhere between tooth and wing, scale and feather, lies the key to understanding our place in the cosmos. What's undeniable is their persistence. Today, these ancient symbols still writhe through modern myths, from the dragons of Game of Thrones to the kaiju of Pacific Rim, their DNA unchanged. They remind us that whether carved into temple stones or glowing on cinema screens, monsters are never just monsters. They are the oldest stories we tell ourselves, whispered first in flint and later in pixels, but always with the same question hissing beneath the surface. Who really is the hybrid here, the creature or the civilization that can't stop dreaming it? Beneath the shifting sands and tangled jungle roots, the stone beasts of antiquity are stirring back to life, not through magic, but through the quiet revolution of modern archaeology. In 2018, laser scans of Guatemala's Petén Basin revealed a sprawling Maya citadel hidden for centuries, its walls etched with previously unknown vision serpent carvings showing the creatures mid-transformation, their bodies interlaced with astrological symbols. Meanwhile, in Iraq's Mosul Museum, where ISIS militants once took sledgehammers to Assyrian reliefs, photogrammetry has resurrected the lost details of Lamassu wings from dust and debris, stitching together 3D models from pre-war tourist selfies. Every year, technology peels back another layer, offering glimpses of creatures our ancestors thought they'd buried forever. Some discoveries rewrite history outright. When drones mapped the Peruvian Andes in 2021, they uncovered a 2,000-year-old Amaru dragon carving nearly 200 feet long, its coiled body forming a massive geoglyph on a mountainside, proof that these serpentine deities were worshipped far earlier than previously believed. Even more startling was the 2023 analysis of a Viking runestone in Sweden, where multispectral imaging exposed faded ink beneath the surface depicting Jörmungandr with runes that suggest the serpent wasn't just feared, but actively invoked by sailors for protection against storms. These aren't just new carvings, they're new chapters in humanity's dialogue with the monstrous, yet for every revelation, a deeper mystery lingers. The British Museum's Lamassu still bear strange, asymmetrical markings on their hindquarters. Recent X-ray fluorescence scans revealed traces of mercury, hinting at lost rituals where the beasts were anointed with liquid metal to animate them during ceremonies. In Cambodia, archaeologists combating looters recently found a decapitated Naga head in a smuggler's stash, its body still missing, its sandstone scales matching no known temple. And at Egypt's Great Sphinx, subsurface radar has detected tantalizing voids beneath its pores, sparking debates over whether hidden chambers might contain records of its true origins, or perhaps even older carvings buried by time. The tools solving these puzzles would baffle their original creators. LiDAR lasers strip away rainforest canopies to expose Maya ball courts where vision serpents twist around gold rings. AI algorithms cross-reference fragmented cuneiform tablets to reconstruct Babylonian descriptions of the Mamassu's daily feedings in vanished temples. In Norway, a team used neutron tomography to peer inside sealed Viking burial mounds, revealing a previously unknown runestone showing Fenrir's chains forged from singing iron, possibly a reference to meteoritic metal. Even crowdsourcing plays a role. When the Met uploaded thousands of Mesopotamian artifact photos online, amateur sleuths spotted a scattered collection of cylinder seals that, when digitally reassembled, formed the oldest known complete depiction of the Scorpion Men's celestial gate. What emerges from these fragments is a startling truth. We've only ever seen half the story. The monsters we know from textbooks, clean, static, safely categorized, are evolving before our eyes. A newly translated Etruscan scroll describes Coulson's not as a static guardian, but as a shapeshifter who could split his faces to watch multiple paths simultaneously. Infrared scans of Aztec sunstones show faded paint suggesting Cipacli's maw was originally blood red, its teeth tipped in gold foil to gleam in torchlight. These creatures weren't frozen in stone. They breathed, shifted, and demanded participation, a fact that forces us to reconsider everything from museum lighting to preservation techniques. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't about the past but the future. As climate change dries up rivers and melts permafrost, sites once inaccessible are yielding their secrets. In 2022, retreating glaciers in the Alps revealed a Bronze Age chimera carving on a stone slab, its goat head eerily similar to Lycian versions from 1,000 years later. At the same time, rising sea levels threaten coastal petroglyphs like Hawaii's shark god carvings and Orkney's Norse dragon stones, racing archaeologists against the tides. The stones are speaking louder than ever, but we may be running out of time to hear them all. Standing at this crossroads, one thing becomes clear. These carvings were never meant to be passive artifacts. They were contracts, warnings, prayers, living entities in their own right. When a team recently used augmented reality to reassemble the shattered Ishtar Gate in Berlin, visitors reported feeling an uncanny unease as the digital Mamassu seemed to track their movements. Maybe it's just clever programming, or maybe after 3,000 years we're finally learning to listen, not just to the stories these creatures tell, but to the spaces between the chisel marks where the real magic hides. From the winged guardians of Assyria to the serpentine deities of the Andes, these 25 carvings form a global tapestry of awe and mystery, each thread a different civilization's answer to the unknown. The Lamassu's watchful eyes, the Sphinx's riddles in stone, the Chimera's fiery breath frozen in relief, they're more than art. They're time capsules of human imagination, proof that every culture, no matter how distant, grappled with the same fundamental questions. What lies beyond the edge of the map? What watches us from the dark, and why do we keep carving its likeness into the very walls meant to keep us safe? What's striking isn't just the diversity of these creatures, but the patterns that bind them. Serpents slither through Mesopotamian ziggurats and Maya temples as conduits to the divine. Hybrid beasts, part eagle, part lion, part human, stand guard from Babylon to the Forbidden City, as if some universal blueprint for protection lives in our collective subconscious. Even the monsters meant to terrify, like the Zime Goronich with its regenerating heads or the manticore with its scorpion tail, share a strange beauty, an acknowledgement that chaos and creation are two sides of the same coin. This obsession with the supernatural isn't ancient history. It's alive in the way we crowd museums to glimpse these carvings, in the shiver down our spines when lightning backlights a storm god's relief. When Khmer dancers don Naga costumes or Navajo artists weave Thunderbirds into silver jewelry, they're not reenacting dead traditions. They're keeping a conversation alive, one that started 40,000 years ago with the first human who pressed a chisel to stone and thought, "This will outlast me." So now we pass the chisel to you. Which of these creatures lingers in your thoughts? Is it the Sheela-na-gig's defiant grin challenging centuries of silence? The Amaru dragon's coils still mapping sacred rivers in the Andean highlands? Or perhaps the Vision Serpent, its jaws stretching wide to whisper secrets only blood and smoke can summon? The stones have spoken across millennia. Now it's your turn. Carve your answer into the comments below, and let's see which monsters still walk among us. After all, the oldest stories aren't the ones locked in museums. They're the ones we keep telling.